Hi, everybody. Welcome to our networking webinar. As you can see, we have Marjorie Dudley with us this afternoon, and I'm really excited. It's called Flywheel. Is that it, Marjorie? Yeah.
Yep.
Flywheel. It's one of the companies, or one of the businesses with Sandler Sales Institute. And so Marjorie's going to be speaking with us this afternoon. Before we start, I just want to find out if everybody can hear us. Dr. Crokin, I see you on there. Can you hear us okay? On the right side of your screen, there's a detached sidebar, and that's where you can post questions or let us know if for some reason you can't hear anything or see anything. So Dr. Crokin, would you give me a yay or a nay when you get a chance? And there's usually a little bit. In the meantime, I just want to, it's a beautiful day here in the Northwest, and I'm in Portland. Marjorie and I are both in the Portland area. Oh, somebody said I see and hear nothing on here. Yeah, okay, Dr. Crokin sees us. Okay. I just heard that it's snowing in Denver, and of course it's always beautiful and sunny and oh, okay, yeah, Dr. Crokin says yep, he hears us and sees us. It's beautiful and sunny in Phoenix, and I assume that in Seattle it's beautiful and sunny up there as well. Anyway, we have a lot of things going on in the future. I always forget to mention what's happening. Next week we have Mike Raber, and Marjorie had an opportunity to meet him last week. Mike he actually lives in Wisconsin. He belongs to a couple of our groups of I Take the Lead meetings up in the Seattle area, and he's going to be our presenter next week, and he's going to be sharing a system of networking that's really helped him build his business by referral. And so that's going to be very interesting. In 2 weeks, there is not going to be a webinar, no networking webinar in 2 weeks. I'm going to be out of town, and I found it's too difficult when I'm out of town to run these. So, so just so you know. Also, for everybody who's on here right now, if you are not in the Portland area, if you are getting my MailChimp newsletters about the networking webinars and you want to be taken off, please just let me know. Just email me. Everybody gets my email when you register and through all the updates. Rather than just taking yourself off of the MailChimp, I'll gladly remove you from it. I only send it out so that you can know what's going on if you want to continue being on the webinars. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marjorie, and Marjorie is going to share the how to create your 30-second commercial so you can be qualifying your prospects. Is that right, Marjorie?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, Marjorie, I'll let you take over then.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Marjorie Dudley. I am a trainer with Flywheel. We're a Sandler training company, like Becky said. And I was first a client of Sandler training. And so what I saw is when I started implementing some of the Sandler systems, Sandler rules into my networking, I actually got a lot more appointments. I turned into a appointment setter instead of a professional visitor. So the time that I was spending networking was a lot more effective. So I'll just dive right in. Let me get over to my screen share here. All right, give me 1 second. All right, so better 30-second commercials. Everybody's probably heard the term 30-second commercial before. And oftentimes we think of our elevator pitch or a 30-second commercial as this great opportunity to just dive right into what we do. But I want us to think of it a little bit differently, and we'll go into how I want us to think about it and why in the next couple slides here. So one of the reasons I want us to think about it differently is because a lot of 30-second commercials don't work. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons is when we just start going on about ourselves, it tends to bore people. A lot of folks can admittedly, and some of us not as admittedly, are what's in it for me people. And the traditional 30-second commercials offer very little of that. If you've ever been networking with someone and you feel like all you hear is that Peanuts voice, wah, 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 that can be very frustrating. And the person, you can tell that you sound like the Peanuts voice to someone else if you notice them looking over your shoulder to see who else can rescue them. And, of course, they're thinking, gosh, I'd wish they'd stop talking now. So, or I'm sure you've thought that as well. And I know I have, and I know I've probably been guilty of making someone think this. So that's one of the reasons 30-second commercials don't work. Another one that's really important is there's very little differentiation, little to no differentiation between us and not only our competitors, but frankly any other business that talks and is giving that individual an overview of what they do. So you tend to hear things like, well, we're the world's greatest training company, and we have the most experience and the friendliest staff, and we provide a great value, and we're not the most expensive and we're not the cheapest. If you are guilty of saying any or all of those things, never fear, we're going to figure out a better way by the end of this, but they're pretty cliche, and it could apply to any business. My business of training, it could apply to the world of chiropractic, it could apply to the copy machine person that comes by, the mortgage loan officer, the realtor. Any business could fit into that in some degree, or at least even if you don't think they could fit into it, when they're giving their 30-second commercial, they think they fit into it. And the person across from us, when we say things like that, is just thinking, ugh, like I've never heard that before.
That's true.
Yeah, they've heard that before. In fact, they heard it 2 minutes ago when they were networking with somebody else. So it's not helping us differentiate who we are and what we do. The other issue that can come up is they can get really verbose, and so I couldn't even write all the things I wanted to write, but basically it comes across as it's all about me, blah, 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 and they're thinking, gosh, she clearly forgot this was a 30-second commercial. Man, I've been here for hours, it seems like. And again, you get the obligatory, I got to go see my friend over here. Another problem that comes up is that they can be terribly vague. So one time, I wish I could tell you the number of times that I've heard people say, well, we help everybody.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's so frustrating because it's like, well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything to me. I can't visualize. Part of what's happening is people are visualizing or thinking in their head. They're kind of running through their list, and they don't know how to weed anyone in or weed anyone out. The worst that I ever heard, though, was a gentleman said that he mentioned his business, and he said, we help people solve the problems they didn't even know they had. And I left thinking, I still have no stinking clue what you do. Not at all. Not even in the slightest. And, like my text abbreviations there. But the person who's hearing that is just, what does that even mean? They're more confused than they were before they talked to you. And that's not a good place. We don't want people to be confused. In my days of book selling, that's how I got my start in sales. In my days of book selling, I had a sales manager who said, confused people don't buy. Confused people don't buy. And so in any of those where we use too much jargon, we're too vague, we lose them because we're too verbose, we confuse people. And then they just kind of nod and smile, and they do the obligatory, oh, that's nice, oh, very interesting. And then they forget what we said and go on to the next person. So here's a jargony one. Here's another example. So we make the neutron reactors for the metaphotosynthesis process in the cellular region of the atomic structure. Now, I will admit none of that actually makes any sense at all. In fact, I've probably contradicted myself, but that's what I hear when people get too much jargon going in their 30-second commercials. And we want people to speak in not just English, but in plain English. We want them to speak in a language that is understandable. So let's not do these things. What makes a good 30-second commercial? One of those things is that it differentiates us from other people. And as I mentioned before, it's not just differentiating us from other people in our industry, but it's also differentiating us from other people, period. We want to sound vastly different. If you're not a mortgage officer, you want to sound vastly different than a mortgage officer. If you're not a realtor, you want to sound vastly different than a realtor. I want to sound different than every other field. I don't want people to just lump me together with salespeople or lump me together with training. I'm different than that, and I want to communicate that with folks. I want to know clearly what people do when I network with them, and I want to communicate clearly what I do when I network with other people. Because what I'm hoping for, and that I think is the next bullet point, what I'm hoping for is it will help me qualify or help the other person qualify if we're a fit to do business. And even more importantly, if we're not a fit. And a third one that I didn't put in here is maybe they know someone who's a fit. Now, we're not qualifying if they're a fit to become our next customer necessarily. And I think that's oftentimes where we go wrong in 30-second commercials. We think we're there to get customers. The reality is we're actually there to get appointments. And let me show you the next two bullets. So we want the person to ask for more information. That's the fourth bullet there. And we want to get an appointment under ideal circumstances, not a sale on the spot. And that's really important. A lot of 30-second commercials, elevator pitches, think that this commercial is designed to, close the sale right on the spot. In reality, we just want enough curiosity that someone says, tell me more, and that sounds like we should talk, make an appointment, and see where this goes. Think dating 101. You're not going out on your first date to see if you're going to get married. You're going out on your first date to see if it makes sense to continue dating. And so we're not trying to close the deal on the first introduction. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So how do I do all that? How do we do all that when, unfortunately, we've been either not trained at all or trained to do it the old way? Well, one thing is we start off by telling folks what we do. Now, that's kind of duh, but let me show you a little bit of a different way to tell people what you do. So the way I tell people what I do is I say I work with business owners and sales professionals. There's a couple things there. It's a little bit tailored. It's not I work with everybody. I'm inserting there sort of my ideal customer. And that gives people, again, people tend to be either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. They learn through seeing, they learn through hearing, or they learn through feeling. So I'm trying to provide an accurate picture, an accurate phrase, or an accurate feeling that will trigger something in the person I'm talking to. That's step one. Step two is we do a stroke move. Sandler calls a stroke. So a stroke is essentially a compliment who are by and large doing well. So I want people to know I don't work with failures. And that's for two reasons. I want them to know I don't work with failures because I don't want them to make a judgment on my business, but more importantly, I don't want them to think I work with failures because why would they then want to work with me? There's a Sandler joke that says never call someone's kid ugly. When we immediately go into problems, like I work with companies who are having huge problems with their marketing and their website isn't generating leads and they're sitting there thinking, gosh, I'm the person who designed this website. How do you think they feel at that moment? We've essentially called them an idiot and they don't know what they're doing. We've sort of offended them. And so that's the important feature of the stroke is we give them sort of a little bit of a confidence booster that we're not judging them, that they're not a failure. But generally, we work with people who are doing well. And so you can change that around to fit your language and your world. It might sound like if you're a realtor, you work with homeowners who are a little, they're happy with their house, they like it, but they're starting to see needs where they're outgrowing it, right? So we don't want to just immediately judge that their house is in the worst neighborhood or anything like that. The third step is what Sandler calls a Chinese menu, and this is taken from, if you've ever been to a Chinese restaurant and seen how there are some 74 menu items, but really there's about 3 or 4 proteins that you can choose from and about 3 or 4 vegetables that you can choose from. And the 72 items are just combinations of that. But when they give you 72 items, they paint this picture that you really cast a broad net. That's where we get into saying it a little better than I do everything. So a Chinese menu in my world might sound something like, but occasionally struggle with generating new business, sometimes get frustrated that clients who seem like the perfect fit now disappear, and often hear the dreaded, I need to think it over. So if someone is in a business and they're feeling or hearing one of these three things, then they might be a fit for me. Now, the key to the Chinese menu bullet points is twofold. One key is that there are emotional words in there. So if you've noticed frustrated, dreaded, occasionally struggle with, those are emotional words that you've likely heard clients say when they've switched over to you. Oh, I'm coming to see you now. I'm coming to your printing organization because it's just irritating as all heck that I can't seem to get a job done on time with these other guys. And now you know, gosh, well, I help people who are irritated that their current vendor can't get their printing done in a timely fashion. And now you've got a pain point. So it's an emotional word and then a pain point, which is the why someone would be coming to you in the first place. Why would they leave the other guys? What sort of things are they experiencing with their other vendor, or maybe not using somebody at all, that would cause them enough grief to break away from their current habits, their current busy days and busy schedules, and actually entertain the idea of making a change in either their personal lifestyle or their professional world. So if we don't speak in pain points, if we strictly speak in features and benefits, the problem that comes up is features and benefits, like we talked about in one of the 30-second commercials that doesn't work. Features and benefits tend to get very homogenous after a while. If I asked who's listening to this that could say they provide great value, I'm sure everybody would raise their hand. If I asked who has years in service, dedicated, educated staff, everybody would say yes. If I asked who provides service in a timely fashion, everybody would say yes. But now we talk about symptoms and problems that would lead someone to make a change, and we've got a slightly different, a very much differentiated 30-second commercial. And as you just heard, so that little, I can't tell if you can tell on that, but that's a little tip jar. So these are my tips. These things are the things that we become our pain points. They start with our features and benefits, but they aren't. There are features and benefits, and what happens if someone doesn't have those features and benefits. So they're not things like value or experience. They're, if we don't have a great value, what does that mean to the end user? Again, what's in it for me as your potential customer? So the fourth step is a hook question. So obviously we've got to turn it around back to them because it isn't all about us. I don't suppose you ever deal with any of that in your business, do you? And the hook question is, I can't remember, there we go, tip, stay behind the pendulum. The hook question is designed to be phrased a little bit differently than what people are used to hearing. There's a reason for that. When we typically say, are you interested in that? People have been conditioned to words like interested in and how does that sound? There's a lot of conditioning, and they then, when we trigger a conditioned a condition, if you will, then someone doesn't respond genuinely. They respond with sort of their autopilot response. So things like if we went into a car dealer today and the salesperson walked up to you right as you were getting out of your car and said, "What can I help you find today?" How many of you would answer, "Nothing, just looking, thanks"?
Oh, I would.
Absolutely. That is a pattern every single time. So that's a pattern. So we want to get out of those patterns, and we do that in a way of what we call staying behind the pendulum, which essentially means if everyone were to put their arm out to their side right now, and imagine someone coming over to you and trying to push down on your arm, we would naturally push up to resist them. Staying behind the pendulum means we get out of the way. We don't push anyone in any direction. We do more like if you're trying to get your lost dog to come to you, and we crouch down really low, and we don't come after them and chase them because they'll run away. We crouch down really low and wait for them to come to us. So the same idea is you don't necessarily need to crouch down in your 30-second commercials. That would be awkward. But what you do need to do is sort of verbally crouch down. So you're not coming at them. You're saying, "Oh, I don't suppose you ever deal with any of those in your business, do you?" And you can hear in tonality and in words, it's counterintuitive to what all the other people are saying when they're networking. The next step is that we probe. So a probe is really simple. Could you give me an example? So let's say, and I'll just hop back to the previous slide for a second, I don't suppose you ever deal with any of those things in your business. And they say, "Well, sure. I mean, I'm in sales. I deal with those things all the time. People are hiding from me. People are telling me they need to think it over." And they just leave it at that. Well, I don't want to just, again, kind of jump on that and start chasing them, I want to draw them out a little more, a little bit counterintuitively. So I just say, could you give me an example? Or, oh, tell me more. And we get them talking more. They should be, at this point of the game, talking a lot more than we are. The sixth step is then we ask for a continuation. Remember, we're here to network. We're not here to sell. So after they give us enough information into their world and into the problems that they're facing, and this is probably 5 minutes in from our original point of a 30-second commercial. So I know it sounds a little funny. Oh, hey, I thought it was 30 seconds. Well, the original part was 30 seconds, but now we've got them talking, and people like to talk about themselves. So they've probably just shared with you for about 3.5 minutes at this point. So we ask for continuation, and we say something along the lines of, well, I'm not sure if I can help. Remember, we're being behind the pendulum. Not sure if I can help, but based on what you're telling me, it sounds like it might make sense for us to get together sometime. So we're basically saying that's great. I don't know if I can fix your problems because, A, I'm not a traditional salesperson that's just going to get all excited and jump on that, but also because there's a chance that maybe I don't do what you need to do, or what you won't pay the fee that I charge, or you need something that is just, not going to work for me. But we do want to, in a sense, get an invitation to meet with them under ideal circumstances. And that's the other tip and a reminder that we're trying to set up a conversation, a full-length conversation under ideal circumstances, and then we're trying to get back to networking. So if you spend your whole time with this person at an hour networking event, then you've missed out on 5 or so other people that you could have had appointments with. So you should be probably every 10 minutes making sure you switch people. If you're spending longer than 10 minutes with any one person, then that's a clue that your commercial isn't designed to set up an appointment, but you're getting too caught up in one person, or worse, getting caught up in yourself. And then finally, we set the appointment and we confirm. Underline the confirm part of it, because everybody can set an appointment and a lot of people do, but we want to be, again, a little bit different. So great, I look forward to talking with you on such and such date to talk about some of the problems that you're having in terms of your sales and your sales process and clients stringing you along for days and weeks and months. So you don't see anything causing you to need to change that meeting, do you? And we're solidifying there that they really are serious about meeting. We are confirming that we understand we're setting an appointment with them and that they understand and that our time is busy. We're also presenting sort of a confidence of equal stature. Just because we sell things for a living, everybody does in some capacity, but just because we sell things for a living, we're not lesser than to the person that is potentially buying. And then just a friendly, see you then, let's get moving. Let's get on to the next prospect. So what that sounds, and lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Get ready to do it all over again. Do it all over again at your networking event. Get as many of those in as you possibly can. So altogether, it sounds something like this. I work with business owners and sales professionals who are by and large doing well, but occasionally they struggle with generating new business. Sometimes they get frustrated that prospects who seem like the perfect fit have completely disappeared, and often they hear the dreaded, I need to think it over, after a perfect presentation. I don't suppose you're dealing with any of those in your business, though, are you? So assume they answer me that they are. Could you give me an example? Not sure if I can help. I might not be able to, but based on what you're telling me, it sounds like it might make sense for us to get together. Assuming they say yes, great. I look forward to talking to you on this date. We'll talk about some of the challenges you're having in selling and some of the goals that you want to reach. And just to be sure, you don't see anything coming up between now and then that would cause you to need to change our meeting, do you? Great. See you then. And that is a 30-second commercial that will qualify people to meeting with you or qualify people out who aren't a fit to meeting with you. Sometimes people say, well, what if they say no back at the 3 bullet points? Now, if they say no back at the Chinese menu or the three pain points that we talked about, you have a couple options. You could ask, well, what are you dealing with? What is keeping you awake at night as it pertains to whatever your business is? They still might have nothing, and you could ask for a referral at that point. Do you know anyone who might be facing some of these challenges? Are you comfortable introducing me to anyone? Or you can just call it a day. So your options are to find out from them another challenge that you didn't mention, or to get a referral and move on. What I did not say because it's not a good option, is to try and force them or convince them in the fact that they need you. If your pain points are legitimate, you really do solve those problems for people, and you've cast a fairly wide net, meaning if you took all the customers that you currently have and fit them into three or so buckets, the buckets being the reasons that they use you and not XYZ down the street, then you should be able, with just 3 pain points, be able to generally touch on almost 80-90% of your customer base. I was talking to a client this week, and he runs and sells yoga and health and wellness type classes to businesses to put on for their employees. So he and his staff put them on, businesses bring him in and his people in to have 3 different things. Health and wellness for their employees, more employee engagement, and I'm totally spacing on the 3rd bucket. But we talked about, he was struggling with that buckets concept, and we were talking about why the buckets matter. And he said, but I only do one thing. I mean, it's basically yoga and wellness classes. He doesn't do 75 different services. And the aha for him was the fact that if you went to a gym, let's say you just walked into a health club, a gym, and there was 15 different people working out. They're all working out in the same gym, but the reason that got them to that gym, there's probably 15 different reasons, one different reason for each person. One person wants to get fit for these reasons, another person's training to run a marathon or be in a competition. The list is endless. So it doesn't matter that our services are focused or broad. What matters is that we use pain points that speak to our customer base. And we base what would speak to our future customer base predominantly on what speaks to our existing customer base and why they came over to us in the first place. So I put back to you, why does this work better? Well, there's a few reasons why this is more effective. People don't buy features and benefits anymore. If you can walk away from here learning one thing, stop selling your features and benefits because they sound like everybody else. They sound exactly like your biggest competitor. And I know we'd all proudly bang our fists on the desk and say, I am nothing like my biggest competitor. They don't have nearly the quality that we have. They would beg to differ. Now, you're probably right and they're probably wrong, but the idea is they're still selling the same things that we are, and so we've got to step above the fray. The second thing is we can't just say we are different. We need to actually be different. Margaret Thatcher had this wonderful saying that was, being a leader is like being a lady. If you have to say you are, you probably aren't.
Yeah, that's true.
Being different is very much in that same vein. When we go around telling people how different we are, we really just put ourselves in the same pond as everybody else. We need to show that we're different, and showing that we're different starts in that first 30 seconds. First 30 seconds on the phone, first 30 seconds face-to-face in a networking event, first 30 seconds in an appointment. The other reason that this works better is because it's not assuming that the prospect needs us. So often, we're so proud of what we do, and we believe so much in what we do, which is a good thing, but we come on strongly to the point that people have their natural sales defenses up. Again, just like going to that car dealership, we obviously showed up on the lot because we had some interest, but immediately we say, nope, just looking, because we have sales defenses too. Even as professional people who sell different services and products for a living, we're guilty of the same things. So we want to sort of zig when everybody else zags. We want to let them know, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I help these kinds of people. You know anyone? And then that's when people tend, well, I have some of those problems, and then they volunteer the information. And that's exactly because we didn't come on too strong. It's also protecting their okayness, which is really important. And a concept that Sandler teaches often in all the classes is an okay, not okay concept. And the principle here is so basic, you'll say, duh. But generally people want to feel okay about themselves, right? This is why we watch a lot of reality television as a society, because we can walk away from, The Biggest Loser or Survivor or fill in the blank and say, at least I'm not as blank as those people, right? At least I'm not as blank as those people. And then we feel a little bit more okay about ourselves in the moment. So when we do the stroke, for example, and also when we give them pain points and that are about real things that we solve. And also, when we don't come on too strong and stay behind the pendulum, we're protecting their okayness, and we're making sure that they don't ever feel painted into a corner or like we're offending them or insulting them. The last thing we want to do is offend or insult. But here's a problem that we're going to have. More people don't network this way because, well, one reason, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But more importantly than that, because I don't believe this has anything to do with age or tenure in the business. It has more to do with, at a certain point, some people have a tendency to just think, okay, well, I've been doing this for so many years, so I already know how to network. And they're not willing to step outside of their comfort zone or to learn something new or to learn a new way to do it. So my encouragement to anyone listening would be to always ensure that we want to learn new tricks, to always make sure that we are reviewing what we're doing and what's working and what isn't. And even if it is working, could it be working better? So let's be willing to learn some new tricks. More people don't network this way too because this can feel a little funny, especially when you haven't done it before. It'll feel a little funny. If I asked y'all to clasp your hands together and look which thumb is on top, about half of you are going to have a right thumb on top and the other half of you are going to have a left thumb on top. Now go ahead and unclasp your hands and intentionally put the opposite thumb on top. So now if your right thumb was on top before, now your left thumb is on top, and vice versa. It feels a little funny, but I promise you, if you intentionally did that enough times, you'd never have a go-to hand clasp anymore. You do both of them just as equally. That's what happens when we learn new things. Our brain starts firing new synapses, and once we make a strong enough path, then we can do one thing just as easily as we can do something else. So I encourage you, even though something feels funny, don't give up. Thirdly, this means that we need to practice, as I was just saying, and practice is hard. Practice is very hard after we've worked all day, and we've got families and dinner to get on the table and laundry to do and every other thing that we cram into our busy, hectic lives. But I encourage you that setting a little bit of time aside to work on the things that we want to improve will pay big dividends. We don't need to work on this for hours a day. 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day is all it would take to turn something like this into a natural phenomenon for you.
So I'll stop you there. Would you recommend doing it like find a partner to practice with, or just on your own, or at a networking event? What would you suggest?
Obviously, practicing it with a real live person is the most ideal, but that's probably also the most difficult. I find you can be just as effective. The first step is to write it out, not to read from a script and not to memorize it, but to write it out so that you can craft it exactly the way you want. I once had a coach say to me, it's not practice that makes perfect, but it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So if you golf and you practice your swing wrong, it doesn't matter how many times you practice it, you're actually going to get worse. So the same thing with this. We want to write it out so that we can get it exactly the way that we want to. And the second step is to say it. And don't say it and assume you have it memorized when this is new. Read it a few times just so you can get the words out, just so you can get it done in the most ideal situation. Then the next thing I would do, and this is my favorite way because it works for busy people, is to open your phone, and every phone, if you have anything that was built after 2004, has a icon on it to record your voice.
Oh, really?
Say it and record yourself. Say it and record yourself. Say it and record yourself. Remember, lather, rinse, repeat. So if you say it out loud and record yourself and listen back and hear, oh, I missed this step here, I missed this step here, you will, again, all it takes is 5 times a day. When you have 5 minutes between appointments, when you are waiting in the doctor's office, sure, you'll feel a little silly, but that's how we make the most use of our time. Oprah and Bill Gates and all the people that we admire also only have 24 hours in the day. It's how we use them that counts. And if you can squeeze in 5 minutes of practice a day, it'll make huge difference. So again, Becky, just the short answer is if you can find a person, even better, but if not, your voice recorder works just as well.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So what's in it for me? Well, me being you, of course. One is think about what would happen if you could just set 1 or 2 more extra appointments every time you networked or every time you were at a trade show. A lot of folks I know do a networking event a week or a networking event a month. If you could go from 2 appointments set to 4, what would that do to your business? And quantify that. How many additional clients does that mean over the course of a year? And then not only how many clients, but if you get an average of 1 referral per client, how many clients stem from that? Because you have new clients, so you have more people referring you, right? And then how much extra revenue or profit or commission does that mean to you? It adds up quickly. There's a philosophy that I learned a while back again when I was selling books, and it was called the slight edge. We don't have to do things radically different or do radically more. We don't have to figure out how to work 14-hour days. We have to figure out how to make really good use of the 8-hour days that we have. So if you're going to spend 1 hour in one of those days networking, we need to make sure that we're making the biggest impact from that networking event and getting absolutely as many appointments as possible. It's not about just socializing with friends at that point, but about setting up ourselves for future business. So that is my 30-second commercial. I'll answer questions now, and what I just want to put out here is that if anyone is interested, you can go to my website and fill out the Find Me form and get a complimentary hour of coaching. Do put in the info that's why you're filling it out, so I know. And then anybody, for any reason, even if you don't want the hour of coaching, I'd love it if you'd connect with me on LinkedIn. I thank you for your time, and I'm here for questions.
Well, I have one right away.
Okay.
Okay, everybody over on this side, I'm going to put Marjorie's information. And so now's a great time to start asking Marjorie questions since she's here. But my question is, we had Robert who got on the webinar late because he's in Denver. We have a lot of people on the webinar who are not here in the Portland area. Can you work with them somehow?
Yep, I'd be happy to phone coach with them.
Oh, okay.
And yep. So, and I have some clients that are not in the state of Oregon, and that works sometimes. And also, I have a network if they're interested in a referral. So, absolutely, just because you're not in the area, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, great. Well, good. Well, I want to. While we're waiting for the other questions, now I know that you worked with Jeff, and so how long have you yourself been with Sandler?
I was a Sandler client for 2.5 years, and I've been a Sandler trainer for about 2.5 years. So I have about 5 years of experience specifically with Sandler. I've been in sales for over 15 now. I can't believe I'm saying that, but over 15. And Sandler was my final position before I went out on my own. I was training Sandler, and I found between the 30-second commercial and the cold calling and then just the selling system in general, it revolutionized the way I was selling. It was not easy. I don't want to kid anyone into think, it's a magic pill or anything, but it let me know what was happening to me. So oftentimes we're thinking, gosh, I thought that meeting went so well. What the heck happened? Why didn't they call me back? Why can't I find them anymore? And when I implemented the Sandler system, I could trace every, disappearance, every, I'll think about it, every problem that I had back to something that I did or didn't do that I shouldn't have or should have. So that's my personal experience.
Right. Well, could you, and I'm asking you this, and I didn't prep you for it, but I was just thinking while you're talking, do you have one particular success story with a client who maybe that you wouldn't mind sharing?
So I have a lot because I teach in a few different areas. I teach 4 key areas. I teach sales managers or managers of teams. I teach sales professionals and also people who are owner-operators of their business and don't necessarily think of themselves as sales professionals, and yet they are responsible for generating the revenue for their organization. These folks are sometimes things like CPAs or lawyers, architects. They call themselves something other than sales, but yet they're meeting with clients and hopefully generating revenue. I work with customer service teams, and I work with donor development teams, so nonprofits who are trying to generate fundraising revenue. One story that just comes to mind, it's a client I've been working with for, I'd say, about 6 months now, and they're actually in the team and manager and sales professional category. So it's a team of sales professionals and their manager. And there's about 10 of them, plus 5 in California. Okay, so there's about 15 of them total. And I originally came to them, they found me on LinkedIn through a mutual connection, and we met. And they were all doing relatively well. I mean, not even to use the don't call someone's kid ugly, but truthfully, they were doing really well. But they wanted to get everybody on the same page because some people were knocking it out of the park, and some people were sort of trudging along, and then it would switch the next month. So it was like I'd have a really hot month, and then I'd have a really slow month, and back and forth and back and forth, and there was no rhyme or reason. They had no idea. And so I came to them, and I did an 8-hour Sandler, what we'll call a boot camp, and they loved it. They implemented it. Literally the next day I got an email from the CEO who spent half the day with us, and she said, I can already hear them on the phones doing their upfront contracts and saying some of the things that we had talked about. And so that was a huge win in the first day, and they were noticing right away that they were getting more clarity from the people that they were talking to. So Sandler is not about manipulating people into having a problem that they don't have, but just to literally get clarity at every stage of the game of where we are together in a relationship of me as having a product or service and you as possibly needing a product or service, and if it's a fit. So right away they were knocking it out of the park, and they were seeing the results in terms of clarity and not getting strung along. They were having issues from time to time with people saying, yeah, this looks great, I'll get back to you, and then they'd never get back to them. That's one of the big issues that we help people solve. So about a month later, they invited me back, and we talked more at length, and they started some of our regular reinforcement training as an entire team. The whole team drives down from Clackamas to our Wilsonville Training Center every single week, and we're seeing things like bigger sales. So that because they can systematize their process, they now know the real problem and the cost to the business of the real problem, and so then they can actually put someone in a right fit solution instead of a solution that just feels like this is kind of the middle of the road, this is average. I'm trying to think of some of the other success stories that I've heard. They're prospecting a lot more vigorously now. They used to not be consistent with their prospecting. Sometimes they'd make a lot of calls, sometimes they'd make none. They never knew why or where or how or if it was working. And it was a lot more reactive prospecting instead of proactive prospecting. They're all prospecting a lot more proactively because they have a system to their prospecting as well. So those are some of the things that they're seeing. And it's just been about 6 months working together.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, Nina asked, it's funny that you mentioned that you met them through LinkedIn, through a connection on LinkedIn. She said, I would like to network more with my LinkedIn connections. Would this work well there?
Absolutely. Yes. And in case you didn't understand, that is an emphatic yes. So, Nina, a couple things on LinkedIn that would be my tips. If I had my little tip jar icon, I'd throw it up there right now. One of them is, if you don't know personally every person on your LinkedIn that you're connected with on LinkedIn right now, start there. So what I'm doing, I have about 1,000, 1,200 connections, I'm not quite sure. And I realize that, I speak to a lot of people, or I meet people in passing one time, and so we connect on LinkedIn. But the reality is, if someone found me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I see you're connected to so-and-so, could you introduce me? Or, hey, I see you're connected to so-and-so, I was just meeting with them about their services, what do you recommend them? I would not be able to answer that question with about half of the people I'm connected to. So I'm systematically going through every single contact on my LinkedIn, and I am asking them to meet. And I'm basically sending an email that says, on my LinkedIn page, or on my LinkedIn connections, the people that I'm connected with, I try to make sure I know and could recommend or make introductions on their behalf. I realize that while we're first connections and we have several connections in common, we've never actually had a face-to-face business conversation. Would you be open to connecting? And would you be open to connecting over coffee or even over the phone? So that's my first step, Nina, is make sure you are connected with your LinkedIn connections, truly connected. The second step is then to take this type of a 30-second commercial and just shoot people emails. Again, try to go through their email and not through their in-mail. Not everybody checks their in-mail, but if you're first connections, you will have everybody's email. And you basically set up a email. You have to make it a little bit more brief for email, because what you don't want to do is have something so long no one will read. But it'll be as simple as, the subject is maybe something like "just curious" or something like that, that makes someone like, "Oh, what's this?" And, "Hi, so-and-so, Marjorie. I'm just curious. I work with businesses who A, B, and C. Not curious if any of those things are happening to you. If not, not a big deal, but if so, would you be open to having a quick phone conversation?" Now, my phone conversation that I'm trying to set up, a 5 or 10-minute phone conversation, is to do what I would have done on my 30-second commercial. So don't necessarily, and it might depend a little bit on what you sell, Nina, but don't necessarily jump from the LinkedIn to an appointment, because there might be too much pressure there. We want to, again, we're trying to set things up in the ideal circumstances. So that's how I would do it, and it's worked very well for me. Hope that answered your question.
Nina, let us know whether that answered your question. Also, Melissa asks, have you ever worked with marketing businesses? And if so, do you have an example of that?
Mm-hmm. So are we talking promotions marketing, like printing stuff on stuff? Or are we talking marketing, like marketing strategy and website design, or something else entirely?
I don't know. That's all she said.
So we've worked with both of those kinds of businesses. The examples, I mean, unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, tend to be very similar. People come to us because they're having issues in the area of differentiating themselves. They sound like everybody else, and they realize that when someone says, "Well, why would I switch to you guys?" And so we help them differentiate themselves. Or they have a lot of appointments in a week, and they spend a lot of time doing and crafting proposals, and then only a fraction of those proposals actually come back as clients. So we are working with both of those types of companies presently, and they've been clients of ours for some time and continue to come back. So they keep showing up. I feel like that's a good sign.
Oh, okay. Oh, Nina said, awesome, yes, that really helped her with the LinkedIn question.
Good.
And then Melissa said, it's network marketing. Do you work with network marketing companies?
I'm not opposed to it. I've worked with one in the past. The challenge that has happened with network marketing, as I've seen it, now maybe your situation is a little bit different, but the challenge I've had with network marketing is that even though we're recruiting teams, the person who's recruiting the team members, and even though they get paid on those team members, they don't hire and lead them typically in the same fashion as a manager of a company. So they can't compel them. They can just sort of hope and pray and ask if they will develop themselves. So I am happy to. I'd encourage you, again, go to the Find Me, and let's just have a conversation about it so I can understand your specific situation and not make any generalizations that aren't relevant to you. But I have in the past someone who was a kind of a director level, 2 or 3 layers up, and we worked together for about 6 months.
Oh, okay. Okay, very nice. And the question I was going to ask you, because Marjorie is one of the special guest speakers at our Portland area, Portland, Salem, and Vancouver area groups. So I know this. You also, in Portland, you'd be interested in speaking for organizations or...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Becky. Yep. Actually, Vancouver, Washington, I've gone as far as Grants Pass. That's harder for me to do, Grants Pass, Oregon. But my happy place is within about and 90 minutes of a radius of Salem, Oregon. I'm open to anything else. I love speaking at different associations, different meetings, different company retreats, and quarterly, sales meetings or awards banquets and things like that. So I'm speaking at something like that about once a week. So if you have a group that's like that, that's looking for a speaker, again, do the find me and I will give you a ring and we can talk about that. But I'd be happy to talk about what that might look like or what topics are relevant. Again, the topics tend to be in those 4 categories of management and leadership, customer service and sales, donor development, and I speak a lot on goal achieving and communication, workplace communication or dealing with difficult people, that kind of stuff.
Oh, really? You do that too, working with difficult people?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, if any of you are in the Portland area, Marjorie's speaking at our downtown happy hour meeting tomorrow, 4:30, and it's on goal achieving. And if you notice how Marjorie shares it, not goal setting, it's goal achieving. And I had the opportunity to hear her a couple times so far. I'll be there as well tomorrow. But it was outstanding. It really was. So we invite you to be there. And Melissa said thank you. She appreciated that. So real quick before we end, are there any last minute questions anybody have? Or Marjorie, do you have any last minute words of wisdom or advice that you want to share?
Well, words of wisdom, the only thing that, I don't really have very many wise words, are kind of stolen from a lot of other people who are a lot wiser than I am. But I do encourage people to step out of your comfort zone. So when we hear a lot about attitude, and I think sometimes we confuse having a good attitude as being happy and chipper, and while that's maybe a part of it, the stronger message is to have a willingness to step outside of our comfort zone. So if we're not feeling a little bit awkward and uncomfortable and like, ooh, I'm not good at this, then we're probably not growing. So if we're only doing the things that we're already really, really good at, we're probably staying pretty comfy and pretty stagnant. So I'd encourage you to step outside of that comfort zone. I'd love if you reached out to me on LinkedIn or found me on my website, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Marjorie. We thank you for making the time and doing this for you, and we really appreciate it. So, so I wanted to say, let's see, I don't know what their name is. Will the goal achieving presentation be taped? No, that is, it's in person. I take the lead as an in-person leads group organization. That's where Marjorie will be speaking tomorrow. I'm sorry about that. So.
Find me on my website, though, because I actually think I have a really terrible audio copy of it. So
oh, really? Oh,
wow. I do. I mean, I think I self-recorded, so I make no promises about the quality of the recording, but the content will be generally the same. So do connect with me on LinkedIn or find me on my website.
Very good, very good, good. Well, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Again, Marjorie, thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow at 4:30.
See you tomorrow. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.